I can't believe it, but the game's actually underway, and it is our last cast of the day, and then we get freedom to sleep. Right?
No, I gotta make dinner and then I gotta go and do some other things, I bet. And it's just,
Well,
it's,
that actually is wrong, because you said, well, no, but you have the freedom to sleep, you're just choosing to do other things, so maybe get wrecked a little bit.
okay, fine, but, whatever.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the IEM Katowice round of 32. We continue here on the B stream as we get into this last best of 5 for the day. Same stakes as all the other matches. 300 WCS points, essentially $6,000. There's a lot on the line for what it's won at best of 5. Spawning in the bottom left side, this guy never leaves Europe, so I don't know how much he's ever had to practice against his opponents. In the bottom left, it's Happy.
In the top right, as the blue Zerg, he is Hydra.
Now, we had some subs and some donations during the break time. I guess we'll get caught up on that when we have a lot more break time. But to follow up my statement here, Happy is a player who does not leave the European server. Like he will not play in a tournament that has a cross-server boundary to it. Like he won't play $10,000, $5,000, doesn't matter. He's only going to play in Europe. Hydra, admittedly, does practice sometimes on Europe, but for the most part, we're going to see him in Korea, we're going to see him in North America. We're least likely to see him in Europe. So I don't actually know how much these two have played. And apparently last year, I remember there's some stats posted, Happy had like a 3-1 win record over Hydra. But of course, that was hard at the Swarm, and things have changed, and Hydra's a bigger, badder ass than ever. So I don't know if he'll be able to hold on to that here and now.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was certainly going to forget that Happy has that whole thing about him. Because, I mean, usually you say they've played in online cups, even if it is cross-server, they kind of wanted to play for $100. They played in a bigger cup and were forced to play cross-server, or, occasionally they want to play in the European server or the Korean server, but no, not this guy. So, I'm sure that Happy studied Hydra's VODs. I think, just in general, everyone has seen Hydra on a big stage because Hydra's always going to those, top fours and,
He's
and,
on
and finals
the
and
side
stuff.
of a building in Poland, literally.
Yeah, totally. So I'm sure he knows what's caliber of players he's up against, but as to actual details of how he's playing ZvT is a little up in the air potentially, but also because Happy himself plays a bit of a different style. We might get to see that's showcased here. That could just be Hellions right now versus Hydra's, just Ling opener actually. He's getting the Overlord speed, but it looks to be just for scouting.
So actually, to follow that up, I don't know how Happy's playing right now. Again, him not playing in a lot of stuff that we particularly do. We haven't actually seen him. I think the Cybet Race Wars is really the only time we saw him prior to this. But the thing about Happy in the past was he was this guy who he didn't have a lot of variety in builds. He wasn't very innovative when it came to cool weird things like Ghost Rushes. He just played standard and he did it really well. And because he could execute it flawlessly and play mech, of course, too, that was really where a lot of his strengths came from. So. Oh, that's kind of cool. The muzzle flash illuminating the marine.
Oh, that was real quick.
Yeah, so adapting to this is going to be Hydra's job, I feel. If Happy is still that same player, because admittedly, I don't know if he is, but let's assume for a moment that he is the same guy who plays one build but does it really, really, really well. Hydra's also very good at adapting to situations. And we've seen him do weird builds. We've seen him do standard builds. We've seen a variety of things out of Hydra.
Yeah. Well, he's going to defend against this, and he does not have Banelings, but he does have Roaches, and he's going to have Roaches, more importantly, right now. Actually, if Happy just run in there, that might have gone, in fact, better, but taking the time to morph in those Hellbats. Not a lot of Marines to back this up, only 3. The Roaches are going to be coming out. Hopefully they will come out away from the Hellbats and not trapped in the Hellbats exactly like that. It's not how they're supposed to come out. It looks like this is going to be enough with reinforcements in a concave.
This pickup micro is pretty good. I like that.
It's
not enough to make this a devastating attack, but it is keeping a lot of these Hellbats alive longer than they should, and might actually just deal with the Roaches. The Queens, will eventually clean this up, and perhaps Hydra should have been focusing on the medevac the entire time instead of the Hellbats, excuse me. But at the end of the day, that ends up being a much better trade for Happy than what it should have been, since Roaches are more or less the best way to deal with the situation.
That's always the risk, of course, of going for a Hellbat attack like that, but Dusk Towers is pretty popular for Ling Bling Muta. I think Muta is just in general on, long maps, big maps are good. There's some dead space to work around too on this map, and also just how common Liberator harassment can be. That could be another reason to get them, but Hydra didn't. He might go into it like later, but obviously he opened up safe with roaches, and it is going to be a committal to the roaches for now. So Happy just maybe a little unlucky with the opener, but try to make the best out of the situation with that cool pickup micro. So Fly.
Yeah, people ask if Happy even killed anything there. Yes, he very clearly did. I mean, I don't know how you missed it, but there's the units lost tab.
Yeah. The roaches spawning out like that really, like, if they're prepared on a concave, on the ramp, that really does nothing unless you can pick up 2 Hellbats and drop on a mineral line. So them popping out like that was a little awkward. It was something.
This is especially interesting to me to see him follow up with more Hellbat drops. Something that we just don't see a lot of people trying to bother doing at all. But if the Hellbats can get the damage done, I mean, why not? There's a lot of focus on the Liberator right now, so nothing's really looking towards that third. Liberator does go down, and the Medevac's almost there. But decides to back away, I guess? No, just a little bit awkward.
Well, Hydra is getting a lot of roaches and a 4th base off to the right. Not actually the pocket base. Might be looking for an attack here. Happy is going for bio, which can be important to note for him. He might be looking to play a much longer game, but we can't really determine that yet, since he hasn't really... he's just, harassing right now. We don't have the main push set out because he doesn't have stim or combat shields. Well, I feel like that's a mistake right there. Okay, there they go now. Okay, I guess seeing the combat shields not on the way with 1-1 did throw me off. I just assumed the stim had finished. But for stim and combat shields to be started after 1-1, that's not how it's supposed to go.
No. But there was a lot of... I guess the Hellbats were buying a lot of time up to this point. They're not right now, obviously, and maybe Happy's open drops will continue to bring the roaches back home. But Hydra seeing like 3 medevacs out in the map, if those 2 had gone, he may have said, well, then I know you got nothing at home, I'm just going to push. Problem is, no speed on the roaches, or excuse me, speed just finished, pardon me. But it's not a good way to deal with the tanks. Now the tunneling clause I like. You might not be able to get over the tanks, but you can get under the tanks.
It's like, we've seen this problem with Storm for Protoss, Baneling speed for Zerg, and Stim with Terran, and it's just an upgrade that is so pivotal when you're going for those compositions, that you can't assume they won't have it. Like Hydra sees these units not stimming, and that might look a little odd, but they picked up pretty immediately, right? And even if you did kind of be like, do they not have stim? You just assume that it's coming in like 5 or 10 seconds, just like you would assume Storm's about to finish or Baneling Speed's about to finish. So it's like Hydra's going to be able to take advantage of this, which is funny, but great for Happy.
Oh, absolutely.
Just holding up in his 3rd base.
So by the way, let's get caught up on some things. It's a bit of a lull. Old Man donates $5 to the game. Thank you very much. And he says, it's dangerous to go alone. Take this. It's dangerous to go alone. Take this.
$5 bill would probably be some good, maybe like, I don't know, for like a fire.
Capricorn resubs for 10 months. And then Terran Blade is a brand new sub to the channel. Thank you so much, everybody. Big loves all around.
Indeed.
Wait, Terran Blade, I think that's a resub. Maybe a bug. Terran sub's definitely been subbed before, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, there we go.
2 months in a row now. All right, pushing in, but that is a lot of tanks, and Sim did just finish.
But not enough Corsair Gear to kill set tanks. This should have actually taken a lot of them out of the fight immediately. Ends up being a lot better for Happy because those tanks, some of these tanks should have died to Corsair Biles, but a little bit of this, a little bit of that because of problems. There's a turret here in the mineral line, so the roaches do get abolished. But 23 SCVs died in the attack. Now, it's hard to say that that was necessarily worth it because Hydra basically threw away an army for it, but he does build more roaches back at home, and Festers are on the way. He's got 4 bases to work with. He's not in the roughest shape, but definitely doesn't look too hot coming off of that.
It was, Happy not having medevacs to take those tanks around was a big problem for him, but luckily Hydra not demolishing the tanks was once again something that Happy can at least be thankful for. So that's Stim and not getting all of his tanks killed. Great. But he's not looking great in this game. So the 4th base is moving over, but Hive is on the way now for Hydra.
Sinking in with the roaches. Maybe we'll just burrow and deny the base for time, but You might also need to just bring those bad boys back home. I don't know, Concave at first, but it's not going to be enough. Spine Crawler is going to help out a little bit with damage here. Of course, can't even get close enough with the Ravagers to throw down offensive Corrosive Biles to the tank. So there we go. Roaches do come back home from behind. Catch him a little off guard. We'll push him back. And holds the location from Happy. And keep in mind, Hydra's got a very nice drone count. His upgrades are looking dandy. He's almost got Hive Tech. In fact, it's finishing right as we speak. So holding was more important there than anything else. But, ooh, Riamar, thank you generously, man. We'll talk about that in a second. Fight's still raging on. Those same tanks from earlier still not giving up. Wants to shut down Hydra's 5th base. Looks like they might just get it. Tunneling Claws to go underneath the army and get on top of the tanks. Not too bad of an idea, but he might just be picking up to leave by the time he's on Burrow anyways. Does pick up one of the tanks.
There's the Ultralisk Cavern, but there is also Happy preparing for the Ultralisk Cavern. Now, he didn't give away his entire army, you know? That was actually good damage. It kind of petered off at the end, but he got the hatchery, it traded well with the army, and he can go back to an army and not just be stomped by, you know, 7 Ultras popping out at once, because Hydra doesn't have the gas for that. So he can get up to his Liberators, up to his 4th base. I like that Hydra is actually kind of realizing that maybe Ultras to the face won't work here, and is going for a Nidus Worm, so looking towards, you know, a little bit later stage of the game where harassment actually would be very important as the Liberators have to siege up at the 4th base, but not taking a great engagement here.
Loses one of the infestors that were burrowed too on the retreat. Riamar, though, generously donates $25 to the stream. I thank you very much, sir. He says hi. And that way the Silent also resub for 10 months. So, funny enough, we're getting a ton of action here in this game in a lot of different ways. Thank you guys so much.
Ew.
Now, the Nidus Worm is a little bit alarming and definitely catches Happy off guard.
Yes, and I really do love this.
Well, one of the greatest dangers for this, too, is this gets on top of that production. Now, the Nidus Worm's buffing units out, and perhaps the Marauders could focus it down instead of going for the Lings. But there's nothing else coming out of it, so it was just simply an expensive attack.
You know, the Ultras aren't ready, so taking a fight against Roach Ravagers, I'm really going to go all that poorly for Happy, and he tries to take one here, but with a good concave, Hydra does still take it. Now his Hive and his Ultras are on the way. Even upgrades here in the production tab, but I think the capability of a Nidus Worm, because this game, you know, with Liberators sieging up the 4th base, with the Planetary ready, it's going to actually be hard for the Ultras to just Raffle Stomp over the army. So we might be getting, like, you know, that 20-minute game if Happy's got really great defense. And I think Nidus Worms are going to be great at not just, you know, we saw that mistake with Snoot, actually, last time we cast a pretty long TVZ. Just thinking he could win the game with Ultras and then being caught, basically, in a bad position in the late game as he keeps on throwing away very expensive units. This is, the Nidus Worm's kind of expensive, but the Lings really aren't.
Yeah, and these are they do have Adrenal Glands, so that and the level 1 weapon upgrades perhaps just barely enough to tear through things if left unattended. The Lings do burrow in the main, by the way. I don't know if Happy realizes that. The Lings also burrow here in the natural. Again, not sure if he realizes this, but it's already gutted him pretty raw. And Hydra's doing a great job just getting behind and around his opponent. Like, these Nidus Worms, okay, they're kind of expensive, but they're performing the same role Medevac would, and that's keeping the army at home, drawing the attention left, right, and center, and this gives them all the time in the world to get that proper Ultralisk count up, to get that proper army supply up. Because let's not forget, Happy is not full of an army with ghosts and many tanks and a lot of Liberators. He's got a spare amount of Liberators, he's got only whatever's left over tanks from earlier, and no ghosts. Dealing with these Ultras is going to be a pain in the ass.
And his army isn't all in one position ready to go. Otherwise, this would have been a risky push-in. But with the Liberators on siege, with the tanks all alone, now he might want to pull away now. Yeah, okay, he does. But takes a nice Corsair Bio shots on those Liberators. And a good fungal on the Bio, too. He's actually going to try and engage here.
I mean, it's an expensive trade for Hydra if he loses it, but he's not losing it as the thing. He's still pushing in. These Marauders all like one swipe from death, getting choked up here in the natural. It's probably the best way to try and take this fight, but it's still going to suck. The Liberators get taken out thanks to the Corsair Biles and the Ravagers, but most of the Ravagers also got taken out in the process. So for Hydra, maybe backing away, he did knock down a very important base of his opponent and will force another one to lift.
Yeah. Hydra realizes that he's going to need something a little extra than just Infestors and Corsair Biles to ensure the Liberators go down. The game does go on, even though Happy probably will not be winning this game. So Aspire's on the way. It goes Corruptors, and they can go right over the Bio and not really care and kill those Liberators. But maybe not even going to wait for that. He sees a pretty small army. 4 Liberators, no joke. 5 Liberators. Another Nidus Worm comes down, hoping to draw Happy's army back. And it does do that with most of the Bio here.
I mean, he's scared of the overseers because he knows about the threat of these constant Nidus Swarms, but really, if the army's chasing around an overseer in the main and a Nidus Swarm in the main, that's when the army's going to come back in for round 2. Now, the Liberator's actually going to shred the Ultras. Normally, the way this works is you've got all these Lings flooding, and the Liberators waste shots in the Lings, but instead, this is incredibly just awkward, and it's a bad engagement out of Hydra, frankly.
Yeah, it's getting, you know, worse and worse when it pushes into Liberators, so that's where the Corruptors are hopefully going to come and take care of that problem. And also pee a little bit in the Planetary. Because they BM is fun.
But okay, so Corruptors coming up are going to be really nice. We don't actually, you know, I didn't realize this till just now. There's not a lot of Queens on the map in general, so we don't have a bunch on the front line with extra transfuses for said Ultralisks. And a transfuse on a unit like an Ultralisk is actually way more effective than on any other unit just because of that high armor value.
Yeah, I guess that, like, it's the perfect composition. Potential, Ultra, Ling, Infestor, Queen, Corruptor. And Broodlords, I guess, eventually, too. But yeah, he's not quite there yet. In fact, he's lost most of his Infestors.
Oh, you know what?
Really bother rebuilding.
Didn't realize Happy had gone over to almost no Marine production compared to his Marauders, so there's not a lot of anti-air force set Corruptors.
Run free, Corruptors!
Kind of, yeah, and as the Liberators on siege, that just lets the Ultras and Lings slide in underneath this. Now, the Corruptors might go down to the Liberators, but that's fine. It forced them to unsiege, letting the Ultras actually take a fight. Chasing the bio back up to the ramp once again, and Happy has managed to start evening up the supply count, but once again loses a very important critical base as he's starting to run out of mining in many different locations. Ultras just chewing up the last couple of SCVs, and Happy goes from, well, whatever he had before to barely 16 SCVs remaining. And I know mules are good, guys, and we're going to make the argument that Terran's OP because of mules, but mules won't save you from this.
He managed to make yet another command center to float over. So he had 3 extra command centers at one point, but that's only going to get you so far. Because now you don't need just 1 more mining base. You need like 3 more mining bases. Or subtract 3 mining bases from Hydra with a couple of jobs. But that's somewhere Happy has not been doing pretty well with. Because, well, he had his own drops to deal with the Nidus Worm. That the entire time Hydra was doing the Nidus Worm things is usually when Happy's trying to do drops.
You know, the funny thing is there was a bit of a discrepancy here with upgrades for Hydra while this is going on through melee weapons. So the Lings are good against buildings, but not against the 3-3 bio. So Marauders, as we saw, just weren't being dealt with, and you had to bring the Ultras back home. But perhaps, again, like you mentioned, if there were drops going off, would Hydra actually be able to deal with them? He just doesn't, Lings wouldn't cut it. He'd have to use a big Ultra.
It's, I think, the ideal situation for a play like Happy is doing, so a very defensive Liberator setup to, you know, just get the Zerg to say F it and run into your Liberators because they're taking too much economic damage. But that is certainly not what happened in this game. Looking to end the game here finally with this push. A lot of Corruptors this time.
Yeah,
so that is actually most of Hydra's army, but
they were not in anti-air mode, and they come in way too late. Now, he's going to kite the Corruptors away because he doesn't want to give them all traded out, but he could actually kill this and back away, I feel. I don't think needed to back away there. But one of the big things for Hydra is, like, well, he doesn't have money right now. It's because he keeps spending that bank, and he spends it really well, and the supply count is 171 over 78 just in general. So, you know, Happy's army is quite big. You know, give him 2 thumbs up on that, but it is barely 1.5 base mining. It lands, it's just going to caustic spray it. Nope, back away. Bio's there.
The ghosts were missing from, I guess we talked about Hydra's perfect offensive setup, and we didn't really talk about Happy's. Happy was close to it, but if you can get to like maxed out Bio Liberator Ghosts, the Ghosts actually cover the Liberators pretty well against the Corruptors. But they were late, of course, because Happy has not been doing well economically most of this game.
And again, Hydra is going with a lot of Ultras that don't have a lot of support. I mean, there's like a couple of transfuses there, but that's why these engagements are going so poorly for him. I mean, we've seen a lot of times where Hydra will get complacent when he thinks he's ahead. And we know he knows he's ahead, but man, he could have been taking a lot of these engagements a lot better. That's all I'm saying. Like, he's doing well. He's gonna win this game, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, a lot of very cost-ineffective fights for Hydra today.
Even handfuls of Lings getting surrounds on a bio army. Of course, Infestors, most obvious with their fungals. But yeah, there's been a couple of situations where he's been pulled back into Liberator range.
GG.
And it's finally game.
Map number 1 gonna go to Hydra. And we are just going to cut to break right away. See you guys in 2 minutes.